So first I want to start kind of with what SEMO is. And I think if you asked a lot of people who've been to SEMO, they would look at kind of the pasta forward menu and they would say, oh, it's an Italian restaurant. And I've done that several times myself, but in really kind of thinking about it more and doing research for this podcast, you guys have described it as European-inspired Nebraska cuisine. Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and there are some restaurants that I just feel 100% confident sending people to. I mean, there are some where like someone asked me for a recommendation and I can say, oh, you can go here, and I'm like 95% sure that it's going to be a good time, but you're never 100% sure. But there are some where I do feel that. The Boiler Room, Avalos Latin Market, Canara, and my guests tonight have one of those restaurants. If you go to SEMO Pasta and Wine and you don't have a great time, that's on you. That is 100% your fault because the food and the hospitality are top of the line. And here to talk about it tonight are the chef and owner, Drew Staats, his wife and the pastry chef and baker, Michelle Staats, and sous chef, Audrey Timm. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Dan.
Now, I just want to pull back the curtain a little bit to tell you like just how grateful we all should be that they're here right now. They were just telling me yesterday was obviously Mother's Day. So they did a Mother's Day brunch in addition to dinner service. So they were all at the restaurant from basically 5 a.m. until midnight. Then they turned around and made us food and came to do this podcast on their day off. So yeah, let's give them another round of applause. Incredibly grateful for their presence here. Because we have multiple voices here and some people are going to be listening to an audio version of this, I would love for each of you to just introduce yourselves and then give me 30 to 45 seconds on what you love about working at SEMO or what you really feel makes SEMO just a special place. Drew, we'll start with you.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm Drew. Having a restaurant was always the end goal. First time I walked into a restaurant, I wanted one. And to have one 10 blocks from our house is incredible. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Absolutely. My name is Audrey. I think the thing that I enjoy the most about working at SEMO is those few moments when I get to walk out in the dining room and see people enjoying what we do.
My name is Michelle. I really enjoy hearing people's experience because I'm not there to experience it. I'm there in the morning. So hearing, people having a good time and that we're taking care of them, it's very rewarding.
That's awesome. So first I want to start kind of with what SEMO is. And I think if you asked a lot of people who've been to SEMO, they would look at kind of the pasta forward menu and they would say, oh, it's an Italian restaurant. And I've done that several times myself, but in really kind of thinking about it more and doing research for this podcast, you guys have described it as European-inspired Nebraska cuisine. I'm sure you've answered this question many times before, but spare me one more. What does that mean to you?
For us to be Italian, completely Italian never made sense because we're not in Italy. We don't have access to Italian, every Italian ingredient. It's a completely different culture. And we have a lot of, French influence on the menu. We have a lot of, Eastern European, Germanic, Austrian food. Michelle makes the craziest, French pâtés.
So tell me a little bit more, how would you guys describe the food at the restaurant? What does European-inspired Nebraska cuisine mean to you?
I think a big part of it is the people that we work with. So we, as frequently as we can, work with local farms, ranches, purveyors, etc. And so that piece is the Nebraska, and then the inspiration comes from classical French, Italian, European cookery.
Well, Michelle, I want to talk to you a little bit because your role as a pastry chef, it is unique. You're not always there during the peak hours, but you've had a long career as a chef and a sommelier at restaurants all around Omaha. And Drew, you as well. You've worked at several restaurants around Omaha. As you were kind of building out SEMO and thinking about what you wanted it to be, How did you pull from those varied experiences to create this unique concoction that SEMO is?
So actually, I don't do pastries anymore. I just do the bread. We have two gals that work for us who are super excited about doing plated desserts. And, you know, I just said, you know, I can't really give this my full attention, my full time, especially since I'm self-taught. Like, when you're self-taught, your teachers your mistakes. And that's very costly, time-consuming. So I give that up. I do the bread still, but I think now having Audrey kind of working with the two gals that do the pastries, since she's also kind of creating the dinner menu, it's a little bit more cohesive because I, you know, go there in the morning and just kind of do my own thing, and now Audrey's kind of like the overseer of it, and it's more cohesive. The desserts change a lot more, like our dinner menu, because I was not just able to keep up with all of that. So. Yeah.
Drew, I mean, just kind of looking at what SEMO has become, just thinking about the different influences that you and Michelle have had in working at restaurants all around Omaha, the different chefs that you've interacted with and worked with, how did you kind of combine those different experiences to create SEMO? And also just think about like what you wanted in a restaurant. How did you pull all those things together to create SEMO?
It's a great question because it was kind of a tug of war of, you know, my background and my professional interests have always been fine dining. I mean, Michelle and I, every chance we got, you know, we were going to Chicago, we were going to these Michelin star restaurants in Michelin cities and just really seeking the best. And then we landed in Fremont, and it was like, you know, we were doing construction and just building out the restaurant. People would walk in and be, well, don't be expensive, don't be fancy, you know, town's not going to support you. And I was like, well, I only have 40 seats, so let's find 40 people a night that like what we do. And that's just what it was. We weren't going to budge on it. You know, we wanted to do something elevated. We wanted to be nice. It's hard to see a good way to do something and an easy way to do something. And, I don't know, just take the lesser route.
Audrey, what was it about this restaurant as you were coming out of culinary school and looking at your different options? What attracted you to this restaurant?
To be honest, a text message. One of my former classmates shot me a text and said, hey, are you free tomorrow night? We're in a really bad spot and we could use some help. And then I was like, oh, I'm between jobs. I could help you guys out. So I stepped in and immediately fell in love. I had worked with Drew previously and fell in love with what we were doing there and decided to stick around. So,
what do you remember about that night? Like, what impressed you about Audrey? Because, to be clear, Audrey, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21, and she's sous chef at a very successful restaurant. I'm 35, and you've already done more with your life than I have. So that's incredibly impressive. What was it about her that made you say, man, she's got something special here?
Well, two parts to that. So there have been a lot of, I don't want to say administrative changes on the back end, but so Audrey was promoted to head chef a year ago
Yeah,
or more.
January 2024.
Yeah.
So not sous chef?
No.
Oh, so I'm working with outdated information.
That's okay.
Awesome.
Audrey runs it. Audrey runs the kitchen.
Okay. Well, now I'm even more impressed, and I feel worse about myself.
It's okay.
No, we never made a formal announcement because we don't have I don't want to say egos in the kitchen, but none of us walk around with a title, stamped on us. Like, I'll be polishing glasses some nights, and people will be talking to Austin, and they're like, oh, Austin, how long have you owned this? And for those who don't know, Austin has been our general manager, kind of the anchor in the front of house for the better part of since we've been open. And we love it, though, because nobody's personality outshines what the restaurant is doing. The restaurant is all of it. It's not any one person.
There was, as I was doing research for this, I found a post from the August of 2022 pre-fee menu at Sage Student Bistro, which is the on-campus restaurant that is operated by the students at Metro Community College. And there was I think it was a 5-course dinner, maybe a 4-course dinner, but that was highlighting your work. And as I was going through it, I'm looking at it, and it was pickled beets with granola, kale, and parsley cream, and balsamic caviar, chilled corn soup with tomato gel and pickled watermelon rind, raviolo duo with mushroom and carrot ravioli on top of beet top and pine nut risotto. And I'm reading through these descriptions, and I'm looking at these pictures, and I'm like, these are things that like sound like and look like they could be on the SEMO like menu right now. And now that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're head chef at such a young age. What was that like when Drew, kind of had that conversation with you, like, hey, we want you to run the kitchen? Was there any fear, intimidation, or you just attack it head on? Like, what was that like for you?
Absolutely. I mean, the title, I suppose, came more gradually, but over time I had been starting to absorb some of the responsibility, and so it was a rather smooth transition. There was just a couple last steps to fully step into the job, but I'd been working with Drew on writing our menus and taking care of our ordering and staffing and all of that, so it was a relatively smooth transition from hiring to promotion. So
talk to me about writing those menus, because you mentioned you guys really try and work with local farms. I know you try and work with hyper seasonal ingredients, what's best fresh and available in season. So that means your menu is changing usually every week, maybe even more often. I know that there are some staples that are usually going to be there, but there's also a lot of things that change in and out. What is that like as a chef, as opposed to working at a restaurant that kind of has a standard menu that just serves the same things all the time? What are the pros and cons of that?
Oh, I mean, it's super exciting. It gives me a great opportunity to try new things and execute new ideas. Every day at 2 p.m. I sit down to write our menu for the night, that there are at least small changes every single day. And whether that's, new dishes or edits to dishes that we had put on previously to make them better and more improved. I guess cons would be the actual sitting down and getting on my computer, because I want to be cooking.
I'm hearing from you guys, how do you make those edits? Like, what are the influences when you look at a dish and try and determine this needs to be better versus this is great as it is? Is it like things that are happening during service, you realize this dish is taking too long, or is it seeing customer plates that come back and, everybody's leaving the radicchio on the side of this, maybe we take that off this? Like, how do you know when edits need to be made to a dish?
For me, it's when the quality of the produce starts to decline, or when new produce makes its debut. We had a guy walk in the other night for the first time for the season with 6 bags of asparagus, and it's like, tomorrow asparagus everywhere. But anyone who has asparagus at their house knows, okay, you don't have a 13-week spring season. You've got 14 good days, pending rain, pending heat, before it's woody and tough and you don't want to eat it anyway.
Just what he said?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for me, availability is a big part of it. And then also from execution in the kitchen, and then feedback from guests and from my team on how that execution comes into play. And then because we do work with local purveyors, it is availability largely, that we're not always able to accumulate large quantities of things. And sometimes it's like I have a few pounds of one ingredient that I would like to highlight, and then maybe once that is gone, we have a new 5 pounds of some ingredient to highlight. And so, yeah.
Nice. I want to wish a belated Happy Mother's Day to you, Michelle.
Thank you.
You guys have 2 very beautiful children, and I know that it helps to some extent that your schedules are a little bit different, because Michelle's coming in doing the baking in the morning. Drew, you're kind of more in the afternoon and evening. But what is that balance like for you guys of being parents and having a family and also owning a restaurant at the same time?
I mean, there's pros and cons to it. You know, I bring the kids down to the restaurant just about every day in the afternoon, and the staff love it. And Harold gets his little piece of Parmesan cheese, and Ellie gets her little slice of focaccia. And, you know, they'll watch, you know, the pasta being made, or, Harold loves doing the dishes. But, you know, since they're so young, you know, they're not in school, and we don't do, other than grandma, we don't really do any other childcare. So I work super early in the morning, and, you know, he's there at late. So we don't get to see each other a lot, but that's just the stage of life that we're in. And, you know, having your own place and, you know, bringing the kids down, it makes it all worth it.
I want to get into hospitality, because I think there are a lot of restaurants that can serve really great food, but can struggle to deliver on a great experience for a guest. And I know you guys really, really prioritize hospitality. Every time we've been in, it's just like, it's amazing how welcome you feel, and you get a rapport with the server. And Sarah's not here tonight, but like, so I'll slightly embarrass her, but I remember, like, we came into SEMO for her birthday last year. And when we left, and she wasn't saying this in a vain way at all, but she was like, they made me feel like a queen tonight. They treated me so well. They treated me like I was the only person there, and that is incredible. And like, you guys had a menu printed that said "Happy Birthday, Sarah" on it, and you had everybody on staff sign it. Like, these tiny little touches that don't even require that much effort, but they require thought and they require care. And those are the things that can make a customer feel special. So I found a quote from you, Drew. You said, I've always been taken care of through food, having someone cook for me, and now I get to cook for other people. Where does your heart for hospitality come from?
Oh, I mean, just the platform to now take care of more people. Like, I've always wanted to take care of people. I knew maybe being a doctor wasn't in the cards. I wasn't going to go to college for it. But, and you probably experienced this more than most people, but so many meals and restaurant meals are strictly transactional. You know, It's just, here's the money, please give me the food. It's the last thing I want to be. I don't want anyone to come to the restaurant just to get full. Like, come here because you want to be taken care of, and then we'll take care of you.
Is that something that all you guys had to kind of learn as chefs? Because I imagine most people, I think, get into the restaurant industry because they love food, and they're excited about food, and they're excited about creating new dishes and rewriting the menu and experimenting and creating things. And then, yeah, once a dish is created, send it out to the people. Did you have to kind of learn to love hospitality, or was that just something that was kind of baked into your upbringing as a chef?
No, I mean, I think, you know, when we were going to those nicer restaurants in Chicago, that was happening to us. Like, we were being taken care of and having just these very memorable experiences. And that's when it's just like, light bulb moment, like, oh my gosh, we want to do this. Like, I've never felt more special than, you know, going to some of the nicer restaurants there. Yeah, it's just, why not? Like, I was reading Unreasonable Hospitality, and I think
it's
a
great book.
Everyone should read it.
Yes.
Even if you're not in the restaurant industry, you should read it, because in, you know, kind of the world we live in today, it's like negative news, negative. Like, I think everyone kind of needs that spark of hospitality and positivity. Yeah,
I've always loved cooking because of the gifting aspect of it, that you're giving to other people. That cooking for me is fine, and that doesn't matter so much to me. But the gift to other people, and then stepping into culinary school and then restaurant jobs, really clicked for me how I could do that at a higher level and give it to people as my job. That's something I care so much about and love so much, is what I get to do every day. That's a dream come true. So,
on March 18th, you guys had a proposal at SEMO. And I don't know if that's the only one that you've had, but it was on social media and I saw it and made note of it. When you see something like that, like a person choosing, this is going to be one of the most important moments in this person's life, and they're choosing your restaurant to host that moment. Like, you know that goes beyond food. You know that goes into the experience of how you make them feel. This has become such a special place that they want to remember it forever. Like, what is that feeling like for you when you see that or you hear that story? Does that just validate like everything that you've been shooting for?
To be honest, at first we're like, oh, why? Why here?
I hope she says yes.
Yeah.
She said yes. It's okay.
She said
You
yes.
say yes, yeah.
It did work
She
out.
looked very happy in the picture.
No, I mean, of course, it feels great. Like being sought out. You have to drive past a lot of great restaurants in Omaha to get to Fremont, and to not just stop somewhere along the way. You know, it was intentional that they came out to us, and they weren't someone that we know regularly. Like, it's not like, you know, some other people that come to every bread sale or every brunch, or, you know, they've got their spot in the corner of the bar on Sundays. Like, so to know that we've impacted people that much that we don't know on a first name basis is cool. It's pretty cool.
Let's talk about the menu. Let's talk about some food. What is it? I mean, as we've discussed already, SEMO is much more than just pasta. But I know that pasta, I wouldn't say it's the backbone of the restaurant, but it's definitely a very big part of what you guys serve. What fascinates you about pasta?
The first time I had fresh pasta, because I've eaten boxed elbow macaroni with butter my whole life, and I was like, it doesn't get better than this. And then I had fresh pasta, and I was like, oh, it gets way better than this. Like, so the jump from good to great. Then I was like, why does anyone eat dried pasta still? You know, aside of the convenience and, you know, it lasts forever and readily available. But no, then it was like, okay, I need to know how to make it. If I find something I like, then it's like, okay, I have to know everything about it. And yeah, I've just been making pasta since.
So what was that learning journey like for you? What did you do to immerse yourself in pasta?
So I was in culinary school, and I was working at this little steakhouse in Fremont, and they had a, you know, pretty set menu, but there was a daily special, and I was like, I want to make fresh pasta tonight. And they were like, oh, why? We have a bag over there. And I was like, no, we'll make fresh pasta tonight. And then it was like, okay, I need to go somewhere where this is every day. And then I wound up, you know, working at a little pasta place in Dundee. And I was like, okay, this is where I need to be. And now I've just been trying to climb the ladder since.
What is your research in pasta like? Because I mean, with all food, there's no like finish line. There's no learning everything. I mean, you were even telling me one of the pasta shapes that we ate tonight it's not fusilli, but it was like a giant fusilli. Yeah. So there's always more to learn about pasta. Where are you learning, drawing inspiration? Like, how do you continue to educate yourself?
When Michelle and I were first dating, she was still living in Lincoln. Yeah, she was living in Lincoln, and I was living in New York. And we would mail each other cookbooks.
Wow.
And so books, I mean, we've got probably 150 books. And now half of them are at the restaurant. You know, right when you walk out of the restrooms, we have just a wall of books. Because now we want anyone, you know, staff or guests alike, to see a book on the shelf and be like, oh, I've eaten at this restaurant, or I know this chef, or we had a guy the other night, I didn't tell you this yet. He grabbed your Understanding Organic Wine Chemistry book off the shelf because he's got 2 doctorates in chemistry, and was like, oh, I want to read this.
Did he take it? Because I'll probably never read it.
Yeah, so he took it to the table and read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
How did that tradition start? That's so unique.
Yeah, I mean, when we were living apart, and then when you reach a certain level, your learning kind of stops, or it kind of plateaus in a way. And you know, when you have your own place, it's not like you're going to go and stage. You know, it's like, so cookbooks are one thing to learn, or, you know, talking to other chefs too. That's really the only way you can kind of learn, I guess.
Yeah. Or you make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I usually make a lot of mistakes.
Mistakes are the best teachers, usually.
Yes.
Audrey, where was your love for pasta before you started here?
I would say it started in culinary school with making pasta for the first time. You do really get to see just how different it is from the experience you have growing up with dried pasta. That's where it started. And then I think I grew in loving it, working at other restaurants that worked with fresh pasta. And then it wasn't until working at SEMO that I truly got to get my hands in pasta and fell in love with it then. But I love the versatility of it. There's so many different ways you can take a pasta dish, and from stuffed shapes to extruded shapes to hand-cut shapes, there's just endless possibilities, and I love that about it.
So talk me through a little bit, because there's a science isn't the right word. You want to pair certain noodles with certain sauces, with certain proteins, like certain things just go better together. Like having the fusilli with a bolognese, the meat can kind of get in those grooves and stick in there. You can have bolognese with a pappardelle or something like that, but it usually won't pair as well because it doesn't adhere to those noodles as well. Kind of what are some of the tips and tricks that you guys have between when you have noodles or even a filled pasta, between applying sauces and proteins and vegetables with them?
The way I was taught in Italy, they decide what pasta they're eating first. And that's kind of why we list pasta on the menu, the pasta shape first. So for that, a lot of it was like, you know, to go back to reading a little bit, like a lot of books will describe, you know, which shapes hold sauce better and what feels right. Like there are times that we will switch a pasta shape because we don't, you know, this might be better if it was a single fork manageable pasta versus like something you have to twirl. Like, unpopular opinion, I don't love pappardelle because it gets kind of like slappy when you're eating it.
I've never heard any food described as slappy before, but I know exactly what you mean. I like it, and I'm going to steal that moving forward.
Well, and I don't like to fork and knife a pasta. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just not, I want it to be easy to eat. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Anybody who's ever gone to grandma's house and she doesn't have the right pasta and she makes macaroni and cheese with like penne, none of the kids eat it. And she'll tell you it's the same thing. And if the kids know it's wrong, then the adults should too.
Audrey, what are some tips and tricks as you're putting menus together? If you're starting with that pasta, like you say, okay, we're going to make this pasta this week. Where does your mind start going in terms of, okay, these are the different accoutrements we want to put together with this to create a cohesive dish?
Yeah, what's available. And most of our local purveyors will send out an availability list on Sundays, and so then I'm able to kind of look at, what can I get this coming week? I have turnips coming. Maybe if I dice the turnips, they would fit really nicely in this pasta or this pasta, whatever. So availability and seasonality are going to be the biggest things that affect what pairs with what, but then also balancing the menu. Like we like to have a couple of red sauce pastas available and a couple of white sauce pastas available. And so if we have 4 white wine glazed pastas on the menu and only 1 red sauce pasta, we're maybe not offering the best options and best versatility to the guest. And so maybe changing a shape to better suit a red sauce pasta would be better in that situation.
Yeah, and back to edibility, like if you have spaghetti and then you have these large diced turnips in it, you're not going to be able to get both on the same fork or both in the same bite. We're like, okay, well, let's switch to, maybe a smaller extruded, and we'll cut it to where we can get everything in one bite, and then you get to experience all of it together. So it's not like a bite of pasta and then a bite of, produce, and then a bite of pasta and then a bite of produce.
What is a pasta dish that you guys can recall that you are really proud of, where you're just like, not to toot your own horn, but I nailed it on the execution of the noodle. It just went perfectly with the sauce. There was this protein that just worked in beautifully with it. Are there any that like pop to the front of your mind when you think about that?
For me, we did a beef cheek stuffed mezzaluna with a blue cheese sauce.
Oh, come on.
Yep, beef jus, pecorino romano, and I believe it was a ramp sauce too.
Oh, yeah.
So it was ramps, blue cheese, beef cheek, and beef jus. That one was up there for me for sure.
The salivary glands just like completely activated just hearing you describe that. Whew, that sounds good.
We had the sunchoke caramels from the first wine dinner. We made a super creamy like sunchoke and mascarpone filling. Folded it into these little, they look like candy wrappers because the sunchokes have this kind of chocolatey undertone to them. And then, we did this little Parmesan espuma with it, brown butter, fried hazelnuts, and then we just shaved white truffles on it.
Yeah.
It didn't suck.
It doesn't sound like it, and I'm so shocked to hear that you would shave truffles on something. This guy is the truffle king.
I don't know. We love them.
I don't blame you. They're awesome. I've never seen anyone be so generous with them, which is just another thing that I appreciate. We've talked a lot about local farms, about identifying seasonal ingredients and really highlighting those. How do you guys identify the farms that you want to work with?
I mean, I think from working at previous restaurants, you kind of start to build those relationships with local farmers. We love to work with Long Walk Farm. They have a large availability. I know, I saw that your shirt. And a lot of the time we will have people come in to eat and then say, hey, I see that you offer these vegetables on your menu. I happen to grow them. Would you be interested in working with us? And then that starts a relationship with somebody who maybe doesn't normally sell to restaurants, but now has this outlet to sell to us, and we love to work with them. But
this was a fun little insurance policy. So we don't have a walk-in cooler at the restaurant. We have one little double door cooler. And so we don't have the luxury of buying 30 pounds of something at a time. And in the beginning, what was tricky was, we ran out of stuff a lot. Thankfully, Fremont has 2 farmers markets. And in the beginning, we would call Michelle on Thursday and be like, hey, you need to get this from the market tonight. And then, we went to the market every Saturday, and it was just like, which is cool too, because then you get to give back to this, immediate community, Fremont farmers. And same deal, we were like, hey, if you guys don't sell out today, just knock on the back door of the restaurant at 5 o'clock and we'll send you home empty. And that's been cool. We've met a lot of great people doing that.
So tell me about I'm fascinated by this, a farmer's market run. As you're just walking through and you're looking at what's available, what's going on in your head? Like, are you just immediately coming up with dishes, or are you saying we should just get a bunch of this and then we'll experiment back at the restaurant? Like, what's going through your mind?
When you see an ingredient come into season for the first time, then every wheel turns right away. We were at the farmer's market, and it was early last year, but it was like they had apples. And we were like, oh, it's apple season. Like, let's go, full speed. And and we just bought a bunch from that lady.
I think it's so interesting that you guys focus so much on farmers and local farms, because there was a period where it looked like that was the road that you guys might take during COVID when restaurants were shutting down. I know you two considered being farmers market farmers. What interested you in that option?
I grew up on a farm. My mom had a garden every year when I was little. And it's just so much better when you taste peas from your own garden or cucumbers from your own garden. I remember we grew cucumbers. I ate so many cucumbers that first year we grew them. And then I went to grocery store cucumber. I'm like, this tastes like wax and water. Like, it was gross. So just, tasting that difference and, fresh, locally grown produce is kind of like the dry pasta versus fresh pasta kind of sort of thing. We only want to use the best.
What about that period of your lives when you're like really getting into farming, really getting into gardening, inspired you and taught you things that you're still using at the restaurant today? Were there any like really important takeaways?
We had a pretty big garden and we realized how much hard work it is. So it gave us a deeper appreciation for the farmers. I don't, try and, we don't try and finagle them when they tell us this is our price. It's like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, we were in well over our heads that first year that so it was right during COVID. Michelle is 8 months pregnant, and we were like, oh, we should buy a farm. We both got fired from our jobs.
Yeah, so March 2020, I was 6 months pregnant. We're in the process of buying a house. We both lost our jobs the same day because of COVID. The housing was going to fall through, but we made it work. And then, when the restaurant shut down, it's like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't both put our eggs in the same basket. Maybe we both shouldn't, make restaurants, our source of income, because they shut them down. And, everyone's got to eat. And it's just, it's something we both enjoyed, being out there working with the, food that we love to prepare.
Well, and we were growing, the produce that we wish we would have had access to when we were chefs. We were, and that was because I was done with restaurants. I was so jaded from COVID shutting restaurants down, and you put your whole life into something, and for something outside of your control, it's just taken away. And I was like, I'm done, not doing restaurants anymore. And I was growing all of this, these fancy little Thumbelina carrots, that farmers don't want to grow because the same seed can grow a bigger carrot and you can make more money. And I was selling them to our friends at V-Merts and our friends at Okrant. And I was like, well, this sucks that they get to play with these toys and I don't. And then I got back into restaurants.
So farming is kind of like what reignited that spark for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Strictly just jealousy. I don't know. I don't think I ever could have stayed away from restaurants either. I love service. I love guests. When you're just on a farm and you're pulling weeds all day, because there's always weeds. Even when you're done, there's still weeds somewhere else. And you don't see or talk to anybody. And I was like, well, there's nothing satisfying about it because I wasn't directly taking care of people. And that's what I missed.
Now, you mentioned, Drew, from the moment that you first walked into a restaurant, you knew that you wanted one. And you did get back into the restaurant game. You were a sous chef at Dante for a couple years. At what point did owning your own restaurant, branching off and doing your own thing, most chefs want that at some point, but when did it start to become a real reality? Okay, this is the right time to make this happen.
Oh, I don't know if it was the right time. I don't think there ever is a right time.
Okay, well, how did you make the decision that this is more of a right time than the other times?
Honestly, I got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There was a guest while I was cooking at Dante, and he just walked back in the kitchen one night, and he was like, who made this dish? And I was like, well, I think 5 or 6 of us had a part of it, that's just how we like to create the menu. And he's like, okay, well, whose who's the guy? And I was like, well, okay, if you're looking for somebody, technically I'm the guy. And he's like, why don't you have your own place? And I was like, because I'm broke, dude. I don't have any money. I work in kitchens. Like, and I assumed, I always had this concept or this like notion that, you know, oh, it's $1 million project. Like, because you hear about restaurants opening and, you know, what people had to spend to get it there. And it was so unattainable that I never even looked into it. And yeah, this guy was like, if you ever want to do this for yourself, call me and we'll get you on the right path. And so yeah, it was the day our daughter came home from the hospital. I was like, I don't ever want to go back to work. You know, if it's not for me, for us, I don't want to do it. And so I called him and I was like, so what do? Do you fight, you know, do you get a building first? Like, do you go to the bank, get a bank loan? And he's like, if you go to the bank, I'll kill you. He's like, you know, SBA loans just kill people. And set me on the path. And then we found the spot and then I was just like, you know, here's my notice. And then we went full speed. And then we were there every second of the day.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions, but first, I need to know, what was the dish? Like, basically the dish that got you your restaurant. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was bone marrow. We did these little pickled shiitake mushrooms on it, and just like some little dressed greens next to it. Wow. And it was just bone marrow.
Dang.
Well, I shouldn't say just bone marrow. It was Kendra's bone marrow, the Central Nebraska buffalo.
That explains some things.
And yeah, he's like, I don't ever get bison on a restaurant menu or bone marrow anymore. Because a lot of butcher shops quit doing it because of the insurance risk, because you have to run a bone down a saw. And for marrow bones that are going to sell for $2 a pound. So like for someone to lose a thumb for $2 a pound, they just don't do it anymore.
Michelle, what do you remember about that first conversation you had with Drew after that night? I mean, I know that's an incredibly emotional time for your family. Your daughter had to spend some time in the hospital after she was born, and Drew said this was the night she came home. So like emotions, I'm sure, are already running high. And then I have no doubt you guys have had conversations over the years about, hey, if we had our own place, what would it look like? And now for Drew to say, hey, I talked to this guy. I have a way to maybe make this a reality. What do you remember about that night?
I mean, I think it was a dream of mine as well, and I was like, do it. You know, we both have been kind of burned by restaurants and certain restaurant owners, and, you know, we wanted to kind of have control. When Ellie came home, he was at work, and I FaceTimed him, Ellie meeting Harold for the first time. After I delivered Ellie, it was one of the busiest weeks in your restaurant life.
Yeah.
And you went to work, and I was in the hospital. I did eat all your cookies, though, that they brought us both. So that's a perk. But, you know, when you have your own place, you get to you kind of have to wear a lot of hats, but you can also kind of get to choose which hats you want to switch with someone else or whatnot. Yeah. Like, you know, with the pastries, there was 2 eager cooks that also had an interest, and I just didn't have time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hand this hat to you. Yeah.
That kind of plays into something that I don't even remember where I read it, but I read it somewhere. You guys don't like to use the term work-life balance. Can you explain why?
To me, balance always has a positive and negative connotation. And my work, my career is an extension of myself. So it shouldn't be the bad thing. And we've never not worked like this. Like, when Michelle and I got together, she had 3 jobs. Like, she was 6 months pregnant with 3 jobs, and I was like, please quit one of them.
Yeah, and I didn't need to really, but I think, you know, we just like being busy, you know, we like being on our feet, you know, we I don't think all three of us could see us sitting at an office job. That's just not us. That's just not our personality. Yeah.
There's a bit of like, in a healthy way, a competitive excellence. Like, if you dice 10 onions a day and you're striving to make them perfect, and the chef next to you is doing 100, one of you is going to get there faster. It's not the person doing 10 a day. So it's like you need reps. You need to go full speed. You need to be all in on it. Because if you don't, when it comes time for your opportunity, you could get passed.
Speaking of being all in, and you kind of mentioned this a couple minutes ago, but you guys basically like built this restaurant from the ground up. I mean, the building was there, but if you go back through SEMO's social media, I mean, there are pictures and videos of you guys redoing the floors and putting in like basically everything. I imagine that on one hand, that's kind of fun because the restaurant is like your sandbox and you have this, completely blank slate that you can do whatever you want with. But also when you're having to do all this manual labor yourself, that's really difficult. Like, what was that period of your life like as you geared up to open the restaurant?
We talk about mistakes being great teachers, and I'm not a carpenter. And I found out very quickly that, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a proficient painter. We painted every chair. And it's like, okay, the time, money, and resource that went into this, it probably would have been better if we paid someone. And that was with all of it. With doing the floors, like, we inherited a restaurant that wasn't move-in ready. The floors they just weren't in good shape. So we had to strip them, restain them, and then polyurethane them. I had purchased, without knowing, a can of polyurethane that had previously frozen. And what happens when it has been previously frozen is it dries white. So when I put this clear coat over the floors, and I was super proud of it, and I'm looking around like, nice, I did a really good job. And I came back the next morning and the floor was white. I was like, no. I was like, I don't even know what went wrong. And so then you're watching videos like, oh, take a heat gun and it'll, clear it out. And I bought a heat gun, went to Menards and got a heat gun. Then went back to Menards and got the big sander. And I should have just let someone else, a professional, a master in that craft, do that. And I could have spent more time working on the things that only I could have done.
But now you know.
But now we know. I mean, Michelle's dad and I built all of the wine storage, the back bar, server cove, just out of hardware lumber.
And I'm sure you could have had someone else do it, but I'm sure there's a certain pride that comes with that too. When you look around the restaurant and you look at all these different components of it and you're just like, yeah, we didn't just buy that, but like, I built that, I made that.
It's cool to see, not necessarily that, I was able to do this, but we took this thing and now it is here, Mm-hmm. We started with a very modest little bar. We didn't have spirits for the first probably 2 months we were open because we couldn't get liquor reps to come out to Fremont. And so we were just wine. And then when we finally got it, it's like, oh, our little bar is too small. So we put an addition on each side of it. And I don't know, I've been talking for probably 6 months about adding another row to the wine shelf because the wine shelf's now full. And I don't know, I'm happy for the restaurant to watch it get to grow.
May 23rd, 2023. That was opening day for SEMO. What do you guys remember most about that day? When I bring that date up, what memory pops to the front of your mind?
That was the worst week ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can publicly apologize to everyone that came opening weekend. We are so sorry. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, but you're never really ready, to open. There's always more stuff you could do, more improvements to be made. But you just got to go for it, eventually got to bring money in.
Yeah, we opening night at 6:15. We had just done our first seating. We cooked. Everyone's eating, and there are 3 of us in the kitchen. There's me and 2 other cooks, and one of the cooks says, "Hey, I need to run to my car for a second." And they bounced. They never came back.
That's why I got that text message.
In the middle of the shift?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, this sucks, but we'll get through. I mean, same problems I've had working for other restaurant owners where it's just somebody quits and service still goes on. Like, you don't just stop. And so, yeah, service gets over. And at the end of the night, our dishwasher's like, hey, this isn't for me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll figure it out. Yeah, we had a 16-year-old kid that was making $35 an hour. And I was like, some people's parents don't make this. And we're giving you an opportunity to set you up forever. But restaurants are not for everyone. And restaurant work is not for everyone. And everyone will say doing dishes is the most important job in the restaurant. But what stood out the most then was, we had people that we had hired as servers that were like, hey, I'll jump into the kitchen for the rest of the night and I can help out. Hey, I can finish out dishes tonight. Hey, yeah, I can come work for you tomorrow. The people that answered the call.
Those are the ones that you remember, that you can bring in the foxhole.
That's what stood out.
I mean, I think one of the most important things about being a restaurateur or a chef is that adaptability, because you don't know when one of your cooks is going to call in sick or just bounce. You don't know when a burner might just decide it's not going to work, or this fryer is going haywire tonight. Well, I guess you guys don't fry anything, but like in a restaurant, but like if your refrigeration goes out, you don't just get to tell guests, oh, well, we're not serving food tonight, or, we don't have enough help, so your wait time is going to be an hour. People are going to complain. Like, how much did you have to learn that skill of adaptability versus was it already just a natural part of your repertoire?
I mean, well, I took tables last weekend. I took a section I was serving last weekend because, we had different people out for different reasons. And it all just kind of fell on one unfortunate weekend. And you just pivot. It's like, hey, so sorry. We have a bartender sick. We would rather have them be home getting better than here making your drinks. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, so we can just do wine by the glass or beer tonight. No one was mad. And they're like, yeah, thank you for not making someone come in sick to work and then make our drinks. Yeah. You have to be adaptable, right? We had one oven for, the whole first year. I bought a freezer that went out opening weekend. And they're like, I called a lady to come fix it. She's like, hey, just by the way, it's $40 an hour just to answer the phone. And if we send a guy out and we'll do it, it's $40 an hour. And I was like, well, I have to have it, so do it. And then he's like, yeah, it'll be $1,400 to fix it. You may as well just buy a new one. I was like, oh, okay. So now we store bowls in it, and it's not a freezer. It's been a very adaptable freezer.
All right, there's one more thing that I got to ask you guys about. And I think you probably know what's coming here, but anybody in the room a fan of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives or Guy Fieri?
Yeah.
Oh, that was delayed. I was like, man, does anyone know who he is? Very famous Food Network personality. And he visited in May of 2023. He came back to Omaha. He actually opened a restaurant in the Harrah's in Council Bluffs. And then visited 6 restaurants around Omaha to film segments for Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Very exciting time for the Omaha food scene. A very exciting time for you guys because you were opening your restaurant and all of a sudden you get a call and you hear, Guy is coming to your restaurant. I'm just going to open-ended, all three of you, please just tell me that story, like how this came to be that all of a sudden you're getting ready to open SEMO and then Guy is eating in your restaurant. What was that? Tell me the story.
So we had friends and family on Friday night and Saturday night, and our plans were to have our grand opening Wednesday. Saturday night at about 11:30, after cooks walk out, after all of it, I get a call from one of my partners, and he's like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with Guy Fieri right now, and I'm going to bring him to your restaurant tomorrow." And I was like, "You sound like you've had drinks." And I was like, I didn't put any stock into it because, all right, they're in Council Bluffs. It's Guy Fieri. Like, why would he come to Fremont for a restaurant that isn't open, doesn't have any accolades or, any kind of paper trail? And same deal, like for a chef that wasn't, nationally known, or I've never met him before either. And so I didn't put any stock into it. The next day, I'm at the restaurant in booty shorts and flip-flops doing inventory, getting ready for grand opening week. And they call me and they're like, "All right, we're going to be there in an hour. We're bringing Guy." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, what do I even have for food? What did we not sell out of like this weekend? And what can we put together quickly and, and properly take care of him? And yeah, then they just, he had a contingency for coming to Fremont. He's like, "I need to watch the basketball game." And we are we're anti-TV in the restaurant. Michelle literally pulls the TV off the wall at our house and brings the TV down. As we are also, so I called everybody that was on, and I was like, "Hey, you have a chance tonight to serve Guy if you want to come out." And they're like, "Oh, no, I'm actually going to be at my friend's lake this weekend, or I'm doing this Sunday." And I was like, "This won't happen again." Like, you can meet a celebrity. You just have to fill some waters and like help me set the dining room a little bit. And no one, no one was available. And so it was, just Michelle and I and our good buddy Jake Heiliger, Jake.
Mm-hmm. From Wine, Beer, and Spirits.
Yep. So, and Jake was the only one that came out and helped. And it was...
Because he didn't call me, so.
That's true. Well, I don't know. I didn't want to call... Well, I ran out of time, too. I couldn't call everybody.
Right. You had an hour's notice.
Yeah, I was like...
And you had to change out of booty shorts.
Yeah, literally. And he is everything he is on TV, all of the best parts. I tell everyone, too, I got the better end of the deal, because while he was in Omaha filming, everyone that he filmed with had to sign NDAs, and they had to wait 8 months for their episode to come out. He came to us for leisure. He went to other Omaha restaurants, and then clocked in. And so that was cool. Like, that he got to experience us for that. So while we're feeding him, as things are kind of wrapping up, he like, and I'm just hiding in the kitchen. I was like, I'm not going to go out there. Like, we'll just be the vessel for, the rest of his night. And it didn't work. He's like, "Come here, come on." And I go out and talk to him, and he's like, "You have a really special thing here." Like, he walked in through the front doors, didn't say hi to, I was in the back working, and he's just opening our coolers and like pulling produce out and looking at it. And I was like, well, this isn't terrifying at all. Like, I'm not being judged in the moment. But then he comes back and he walks back into the kitchen carrying these beets, and he's like, "You've got really quality produce here." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we work with local farms. This guy actually picked it 2 days ago for this weekend." And he's like, "That is so cool." And yeah, he was just like, don't change on that, I found out immediately too, he is so smart at just immediately like dissecting a situation. he looks around and he's like, we probably have 45 seats here. And I was like, 48 with the bar, yeah. He's like, your ticket average going to be somewhere in this range? He's like, yeah. He's like, okay, so you'll do X, Y, Z numbers. What's your payroll? What do you think labor's going to be? What's your food costs look like? And then just gave us all of these business tips, more or less, like have a strong social media presence. It's free. It's a free advertising platform. It is the easiest, fastest shareable information. He's like, lean into social media. And just little tips like that, like, it was so cool. And then he shook our hand and they left. And then the next day, every newspaper in probably 5 counties called us and they're like, what happened? Why is he in Fremont? Like, we were outside talking at the end and people are driving down Main Street in Fremont just like, people would just stop in the middle of Main Street and like roll their window down. And I was like, you get the SWAT? He's like, well, it comes with it.
Yeah. There are so many follow-up questions that I want to ask you about this experience, but we're getting up against time, and I want to make sure that I respect you guys' time, especially knowing this is your day off. I do have one more question that I can't let you go before you answer. I mean, and I want to get this from all three of you, but especially Michelle and Drew, like thinking about opening this restaurant and creating something for yourself. This has been a lifelong goal. And when you look at have you had a chance to like sit back and reflect on what you've done and what SEMO has become and just how proud you are of it now that we're almost 2 years in? I mean, what are your emotions when you think back on just starting this place, where it's come, the things that you've achieved? Take that question wherever you want to.
I don't know, my first thought always goes to like early conversations after work with Audrey and I. And Audrey's like, man, doesn't this feel so cool? Like, you wanted this and you have it, and like, isn't it great? And
he's like, no.
In the beginning, there was so much of just like, well, the feeling doesn't matter because we still have to just do this. And also, you never feel like you're in the clear, especially in the beginning. You're like, you're fighting for every single person to come in. Like, we've got to make payroll, we've got to pay off, some opening expenses. Like, we opened probably a month before we should have. Just as far as like, I could have used 2 more weeks of staff training. I could have used 2 more weeks of just like, finishing construction. When Guy came in, we literally like threw a tarp over all of our construction tools and like put everything in the corner. It was like, I hope he doesn't look under here. So that was a lot of that feeling for the first bit where you're so busy, you don't have time to sit in it. And you don't have time to think about, how cool it is. Now we've gotten a little bit more established, a little more settled down, and like, I don't know, sometimes I can just be in the kitchen and I can feel the hum of the dining room. And like, we're a loud restaurant. Like, we're loud, it's buzzing, people are moving. We have an open kitchen, so like, you can hear pots and pans clanking, you can hear like cocktails getting made, and the energy feels good. And that's been the coolest part.
What do you think, Michelle?
Can I talk about Best of Fremont?
Oh, yeah. I hope so.
Fremont's got Best of Fremont, like Best of Omaha. And we recently won Best Small Business to Work At.
Yeah, best place to work.
Best place to work at for a smaller business, I think. And that was really neat. When you kind of work in other restaurants, and you're dreaming of your own place, you find things that you don't want in a restaurant, and I think that is kind of a very good guiding light. And I was really surprised when we got that. We also got best fine dining too. And so that feels good when, I don't know who voted for us. It was the staff. Like, that's awesome. And then when you have people who stop you and say, thank you for what you're doing for the Fremont community, it becomes something much larger, which is nice. Very nice.
And Audrey, what about you? I know that you're not part of the ownership team, but I mean, you started from somebody who just got a phone call to come work to being head chef in less than 2 years, probably more like a year and a half. Like, when you reflect back on what this restaurant has become, like, what thoughts come to your mind?
Oh, I love looking back at our early menus and just the amount of growth that we have made over the time from starting to now, of just not only what we were able to offer at that time and what we have capacity to offer now, but just the complexity of the food has grown just because we have staffing now, and we have people who are passionate about what they do. I love getting to support a culture that I'm proud of, and I love being able to offer such a unique experience in a small town.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for the hard work that you put in to build this place, because SEMO is legitimately like one of my favorite places, not just to eat. And even if it were just the food and you served it to me in the back alley, I would be extremely happy. But the experience that you create and just the way that you make people feel and that buzz of the restaurant, I'm sure you feel that more as a chef and a restaurant owner, but I can feel that as a diner too. Just, it seems like everything, when you said the hum, everything is humming at the right speed. It just feels right in there. So I thank you so much for putting in the hard work to make this a reality. Sarah and I have had many special meals there. I'm sure we'll have many more. And thank you so much for taking the time tonight to come out and do this podcast on your day off after getting your butt kicked on Mother's Day. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.